going on?
What?
I said get a pro.
I did get a pro.
An Orkin pro. I got you.
Got mosquitoes? Don't call any pro. Call the Orkin Pro. With over 120 years.
Well, George, good morning. A very different feel today from just a couple of days ago when those negotiations on a ceasefire seemed promising, but this morning an impasse remains with new developments in Rafah. This morning, Israeli military officials urging Palestinians to evacuate parts of the southern Gaza city of Rafah, ahead of an expected ground offensive by Israeli forces into the city, where more than 1 million civilians have sought shelter during the war. This as new images show the attack on an Israeli outpost near Rafah. Hamas publishing videos of rockets it fired over the border from Gaza Sunday. The IDF saying the shells landed in southern Israel, killing 4 Israeli soldiers and injuring 10 others. In response to the strike, Israel sealing off the critical Kerem Shalom crossing for Gaza-bound aid, just as the head of the World Food Program says there is a full-blown famine in northern Gaza. Hope for a potential ceasefire dimming after weekend talks. Hamas's delegation leaving the meeting in Cairo after demanding an end to Israel's bombardment and a complete withdrawal from Gaza, something Netanyahu says Israel will not agree to.
No decision by any international forum will stop Israel from defending itself.
And everyone watching very closely what's happening in Rafah. Israel saying it dropped flyers urging more than 100,000 people to evacuate, with Robin giving no timeline for that looming ground operation.
All right, Marcus, thank you so much for your reporting.
Palestinians in Gaza are being forced to move once again to get out of the way for new Israeli military operations against Hamas. This time, in an unprecedented move, they're being forced out of the city of Rafah along the Egyptian border, where more than 1 million Palestinians are taking shelter because they were told it would be safe there. The Israeli military used leaflets and text messages to tell Gazans to leave eastern Rafah because the military will be using significant force against terrorists in the area. The Israeli military estimates 100,000 people are affected. They're being instructed to go to another district on the Mediterranean coast, which Israel is designating as a not quite safe, but safer zone. President Biden has told Prime Minister Netanyahu he does not support a major offensive against Rafah because it's too packed with civilians. But Netanyahu says the Rafah operation must go ahead to root out Hamas. Ceasefire negotiations stalled over the weekend. Hamas says it wants a permanent ceasefire and for the Israeli military to pull out of Gaza. Netanyahu says any ceasefire would be temporary to free hostages in Gaza, but that the mission to destroy Hamas would then continue. Speaking to mark Holocaust Remembrance Day, Netanyahu said history has proven Israel can only count on itself for its safety.
If Israel is forced to stand alone, Israel will stand alone.
This morning, Israelis stopped for 2 minutes of silence to remember the 6 million Jews butchered by the Nazis and their allies during World War II.
Palestinians are increasingly convinced that an Israeli operation in Rafah is coming. And they point to the fact that Israel this weekend shut the offices of Al Jazeera and blocked the channel in this country as a sign that Israel might not want live, continuous coverage of what could become. The reason Israel gave for shutting down the channel is it said it had become a mouthpiece for Hamas. Savannah?
All right, Richard Engel in Jerusalem, thank you.
In here, you can expect to find endless entertainment.